guys, it's April. As most of you guys may have figured out, last week I was in the middle of a read-a-thon, and that was the Genrethon. I have a TBR list up that I did before the read-a-thon to tell all of you what I was going to be reading, and this is the conclusion of said read-a-thon. Question is, did I actually accomplish what I set out to do? The answer is, yep. I am extremely proud of myself that I actually managed to stick to what I said I was going to read. That is extremely hard for me. I am easily distracted by bright, shiny objects or psychedelic things. And so most of the time I start out over here and I veer quite quickly off into another direction. So be proud. I'm proud. And I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed all of the hosts for this read-a-thon and all of their sprints. I tried to get involved as much as I could. I wish I had been more involved, but I tended to get distracted by my reading and or life, and so it didn't work out as well as I wanted it to. What I was involved in was extremely fun. So I recommend that if this thing happens again, that you do it. I'm gonna stop babbling and start talking about books now. The first book I picked up was Flatland by Edwin A. Abbott. This is a romance of multiple dimensions. This is an old school mathy, sciencey, physicsy story that is told about a square who goes and visits some other dimensions that have maybe only one dimension or 3 dimension or 2 dimensions. It gets all kinds of weird and crazy, and if you don't really have that mathematical, scientifical mindset, this can be a bit daunting at times. The problem I had with this book was that most of the time I was sitting there reading it and arguing with some of the logic. That's just who I am. My science brain is always active when I'm reading or watching anything, and so if I see a hole in your theory, I am just gonna get stuck in it and the rest of the story just kind of falls apart for me. That's a little bit what happened here. I wasn't too thrilled about the society that was described in this, and then I was poking holes in the dimension hopping that happened and what would probably really happen if things happened that were in this book. I'm trying not to give away the book as I'm telling you about why I wasn't exactly thrilled with this book. It was a trip, it was extremely interesting, and I'm sure people who have a scientific mind and like literature would enjoy this a little bit and then completely tear it apart. Because that's how things happen. So there's that. I then finally read Animal Farm by George Orwell. This, of course, is about the animals overthrowing the farm and then them creating their own kind of society and hierarchy. It went exactly the way I expected it to, because even though I have never read it before, I have heard a lot of things about it, and that might have spoiled my reading experience of this book a little bit, but I am glad I can finally say that I read this book, which is kind of the whole point of this read-a-thon. The read-a-thon did what it was supposed to do. So yes. And then there was Neverland by Shari Arnold. I did a full-on review of this book, so I will link you every which direction, and you have to check out all of my words about this book because I went all kinds of weird on it. This was given to me as a free copy for an honest review, and this read-a-thon gave me an excuse to pick this up and read it. It is about Olivia, or Livy, who is dealing with the loss of her sister and how she handles grief and the people she meets, and things happen, of course, story happens. This is a Peter Pan reimagining, which is what drew me to this story to begin with, and I absolutely loved how the whole Peter Pan universe was woven into this story. It was beautiful, and I enjoyed it. And finally, there was You by Caroline Kepnes. I actually said the author's name right this time, because I sometimes can't read. That happens. You was a thriller mind trip about a bookstore owner Joe and his stalking tendencies. It was very interesting to see the story told from this perspective of the stalker, but the story didn't feel original to me. It felt like all of the other stalker stories that I have read or I've seen on TV. It was just the perspective twist that really got me into this story. I wasn't thrilled with any of the characters. I like absolutely no one, which I think is a theme for a lot of people who read this book. Because of how the book I just kept wanting to know what was going to happen. That is what kept me hooked. Like I said, there was nothing new in this story, but it won't stop me from picking up the next book just so I can see if things fall down as I think they should. So there's that. So I read all of my TBR for Genrethon. I am so thrilled with myself. I feel accomplished. How did the rest of you guys do? If you did the Read-A-Thon, tell me how you did, and I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.